pull your chair a little closer. Listen to that rain against the glass. There is something about rain like this, heavy, patient, the kind that settles in for the night, that makes a person want to tell a story, or hear one. 2 men and a veterinarian were caught out in weather just like this. Oh, many years ago now. Somewhere in the Russian countryside. The fields had gone gray and soft. The sky had dropped itself down to the tree line, and the 3 of them, Ivan Ivanich, Burkin, and a young landowner named Alekin, took shelter in a bathhouse by a pond, then moved inside to the big house where a maidservant brought them tea and dry clothes. Alekin's house was old and a little tired, with low ceilings and paintings that had gone smoky with age, but it was warm. The samovar hummed. Outside, the rain kept falling, and it was Ivan Ivanich, the older one, the veterinarian with his long mustache and his restless hands, who couldn't sit still. He paced a little. He set down his tea. He had something turning over in him. You could see it. Something he needed to say. "Let me tell you about my brother," he said at last. "Let me tell you about Nikolai." Now, Nikolai was a civil servant, a clerk. He sat at the desk in a gray government office, copying documents, year after year after year. And there is nothing wrong with that. The world needs its clerks. But the trouble was, Nikolai was not really there. In his mind, he was always somewhere else. He had grown up in the country, you see. As a boy, he had run through fields, slept under open sky, eaten berries straight from the bush. And when the city swallowed him up, when the office and the ledgers and the small rented room closed around him like a fist, he carried that countryside inside him, like a secret he told himself every night before sleeping. He wanted an estate, his own land, a white house with outbuildings and a garden, and this was the heart of it, the very center of the dream. Gooseberry bushes, rows and rows of them. So he scraped. He wore the same coat until it was green with age. He ate watery soup and black bread while his colleagues dined on proper meals. He married a widow, a joyless woman with money, and when she died, Ivan said this quietly, and it was heavy. When she died, Nikolai did not grieve long. He had the inheritance. He was closer to his gooseberries. Year by year, the dream thickened. The man himself grew thin, but the dream grew fat. And then one day, Nikolai wrote to his brother. "Come and visit," the letter said. "Come and see what I have made." Ivan went. He took the train, then a cart, then walked a road that turned muddy at the end. And finally, there it was. A small estate, really quite modest, with a fence and a farmyard and a pond with a fringe of trees. It was not much, but it was Nikolai's. And Nikolai, Ivan could barely recognize him. The thin, careful, pinching little clerk was gone. In his place stood a man gone round and soft, pink-cheeked and slow-moving, already beginning to sound like a landowner, already beginning to say things like, "The peasants must understand," and "One has a responsibility to the land." He had a dog that looked like a pig, and a cook who was also round and pink, and he moved through his small kingdom with a lordly, satisfied air that was, Ivan searched for the word, that was coarsened. That was the word. Something in him had coarsened, but he was happy. You could not deny that. He was genuinely, thoroughly happy. That evening, they brought in the first harvest of gooseberries. Nikolai held one up. He ate it slowly, his eyes filled with something that looked very much like tears. Ivan tasted one, just one, and the gooseberry, he told this plainly without cruelty, but plainly was hard. It was sour. It was not a good gooseberry. But Nikolai ate them one by one with the reverence of a man at communion. Delicious, he kept saying. Remarkable. You must have one, Ivan. You must taste this. And he smiled. This wide, slow, sleepy smile. The smile of a man who has arrived somewhere and intends never to leave. Even lay awake that night on a soft bed in a soft room while his brother slept down the hall. And he could not sleep. He kept thinking about that smile, about how content Nikolai was, about how the years of scraping and the dead wife and the sour berries had all added up in Nikolai's accounting to happiness. And something uneven, something old and restless and unwilling to be quieted, began to ache. Because the happiness was real. That was what made it unbearable. It wasn't performed. It wasn't pretended. Nikolai had built himself a small, warm room inside his life, closed the door, pulled the curtains, and called it paradise. And inside that paradise, sour gooseberries tasted sweet. Ivan pressed his hands together in the dark and stared at the ceiling. In the warm room, with the rain still falling, Ivan stopped pacing. He turned to Birkin and Alekin, and his voice had changed. It had gone lower, more urgent. Think about it, he said. Think about the happy man. He is comfortable. He has what he wanted. And because he has it, he has stopped seeing, stopped listening. Behind his door, the world goes on suffering, but he does not hear it. He is asleep. And this, Ivan said, was the thing that frightened him, not unhappiness. Unhappiness he could understand. It was happiness that frightened him. The small, self-sealed kind. The kind that asks nothing and notices nothing, and floats through life like a man with cotton in his ears. Because somewhere, he said, always, somewhere, someone is weeping. Someone is being ground down. And the happy man sits in his garden, eating his gooseberries, and the world outside the gate is invisible to him. We who are still awake, Ivan said, his voice unsteady now. We must not go to sleep. Behind every contented door, behind every satisfied man, someone is suffering quietly in a room you cannot see. And if there is any goodness in us, we must not forget that. We must not let ourselves forget. He fell quiet. The fire shifted. The rain answered. Birkin and Alekin listened. And when Ivan finished, neither of them spoke right away. What was there to say? The story sat in the room the way rain sits in a field. It had soaked in. You couldn't undrench the ground. Alekin, who had his own land and his own small satisfactions, looked at the fire for a long time. Birkin turned his cup in his hands. Ivan stood by the window, watching the dark. Pretty soon they said goodnight. They found their rooms. The house settled into its old bones. But I think, and this is just me, talking to you, here by the fire, I think Ivan's question doesn't really have an answer that fits in a single evening. It's the kind of question that comes back. It comes back when you find yourself too comfortable, when the world outside goes gray and cold, and you pull the curtain a little tighter. It comes back when the thing you dreamed of finally arrives, and you hold it in your hands, and you have to decide, does this open me up, or does it close me down? Nikolai had his gooseberries. They were sour. He thought they were sweet. Maybe that was mercy. Maybe that was tragedy. Maybe, and this is Chekhov speaking now, not me. Maybe it was both, quietly, at the same time. Listen to that rain. It has been falling a long while.